Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to Channel 2. I tweeted something out the other day. I wanted to talk about it. Actually, this was 2 days ago. I tweeted, I feel like it takes a great ego to assume that your opinion is unique to you and there aren't thousands of other people planning on writing the same thing. I make videos every day that overlap with dozens of other videos. It is not plagiarism. This tweet is in response to a thread posted by Amanda Hess. Amanda Hess is a New York Times writer, and she tweeted defending herself after being called a plagiarist because something she wrote in November was similar to something pitched a month before. So this is Amanda Hess, and before we look at what she tweeted, let's look at the original thread from this woman, Sarah Sahim. She tweets, "I'm never going to pitch anything ever again." The first photo, from Sarah Sahim to George K. at the New York Times, Bertrand Cantat and the Toxic Masculinity of the Tortured Male Artist, 12 October 2017. That's when she sent out her pitch. And the next photo, how the myth of the artistic genius excuses the abuse of women. To some, assessing an artist's work in light of his biography is blasphemous, but it's time to do away with the idea that they're separate, by Amanda Hess, November 10, 2017. So it looks like there's some similarity in the pitch and the article written a month later. The general idea that because these tortured artists are tortured, their abuse of women is okay, which it's not. It's an op-ed, right? So let's look at what Sarah tweeted. First said, "I'm never going to pitch anything ever again." Okay, chill, little hyperbolic, I guess. And then she goes, "My heart is fucking pounding with anger." Okay, you didn't get your pitch picked up, chill. "I lost money because my ideas were handed to a white woman." This is when you lose me. And she goes, "So if you want to support me in other ways, as this shit isn't an isolated incident, you can do so here. Very aggressive reminder that this is my goddamn job, and I just ranted about this to my mother, who wants to beat the editor responsible up." Okay, let's break this down. They didn't pick up your pitch. You pitched it, they didn't pick it up. A month later, someone wrote something similar. There's a lot going on there. First, I gotta just say on my tweet, it takes a great ego to think your opinion is unique to you. There are billions of human beings. There are hundreds of millions of Americans. So naturally, people are going to have similar opinions at some point. In fact, this is not even it's not an uncommon opinion. Around the time of this pitch, everybody was talking about this kind of thing. I mean, there's tweets from hundreds of people probably expressing the same thing. I mean, hundreds of writers, let alone the average Twitter user expressing similar opinions. So I understand you're angry when she says my heart is fucking pounding with anger, sure. But then she goes on to say, "I lost money because my ideas were handed to a white woman." Look, I don't understand how that's relevant, and you lose me right there. When you tell me you pitched the story to the New York Times, they turned you down, and then someone else in the New York Times wrote it, I go, that's interesting. Did the New York Times steal your idea? But then when you start, oh, they handed your ideas to a white woman? I don't want to deal with that. Look, I understand there's racism. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I made documentaries about racism. I've done interview after interview, and I've covered this stuff on the ground. This is just totally irrelevant, and it's kind of like a cop-out. Like, what does the fact that Amanda is a white woman have to do with the fact that the New York Times isn't picking up your pitch? Are you saying that they didn't pick your pitch up because you're not white or something? Like, I don't see how that's relevant, and it just, honestly, it takes away your credibility. Because, look, even if it were true that the New York Times was being racist, you lose half of the audience by saying something like that. I guess it's an attempt to pander to the left, but I think it's totally irrelevant here because, look, sometimes people don't pick your pitches up, and sometimes companies will steal your ideas. It's a fact. It happens. She goes on, look, this is where it gets, I'm scratching my head here. You know, I don't like being disrespectful to some people, but look, I'll try and keep this chill a little bit. Very aggressive reminder, this is my goddamn job. She ranted about this to her mother. Look, I don't care about what your mom thinks. And honestly, I think it's unprofessional and childish that you're going to tweet about what your mom thinks. Like, you're going to run to your mom and ask her for some kind of help on this. Look, I never like being disrespectful or directly criticizing individuals in this regard, but I just gotta say, as somebody who I've hired people in the past, I've run offices before, if I saw something like this, I'm not gonna hire you. This scares me. This is a tantrum. You pitched something, it didn't get picked up, it may have been a slight against you. It very well may be true that the New York Times stole your idea and said, we should give this to one of our writers. And it's very possible they are racist, and they want to give your idea to a white woman. But what do you think an editor, a company, is going to think when they see this thread? You're a verified Twitter user. This is getting a decent amount of retweets. They're going to say that person is volatile. and I don't know if I want to have them in the office. What are they going to do? Now, let's go back and look at what Amanda said. She said, "Hey Sarah, I hesitated to say anything about this publicly, and I'm sorry for the delay, but since people keep tweeting and emailing me falsely calling me a plagiarist, I felt that I should. I have never met the editor that you pitched. Before I saw your tweet, I had never even heard of him. Thousands of people work here. I've since learned that the editor works for the opinion section. I work for the Times newsroom. We operate totally independently of one another. My editor in the newsroom, Mary Suh, assigned me the story after she noticed a tweet I wrote in October responding to revelations about actors and directors accused of sexual harassment and worse. She asked me to expand on it, and I did." And then Amanda links to a tweet from October 30th where said, "Can we now do away with the separating the art from the artist? The critical acclaim and economic clout of the art facilitates the abuse." Okay. The reason I want to bring this up, and I want to apologize to Sarah and Amanda. I'm not trying to direct this in you specifically, and I know Amanda tweeted something about letting the thread die, but this is about the idea. This is about an idea that is sort of exemplified, an idea that people have about the millennial generation, that millennials are entitled, that they throw tantrums, that they're unprofessional. Sometimes you get turned down, you get rejected. Sometimes companies steal your ideas. It sucks, but it's a part of life. And Amanda should not have to respond in this way. But it seems like she said she's getting people tweeting and emailing her, calling her a plagiarist. People saw the outrage from Sarah and immediately just jumped the gun and said, "It's true, Amanda, you're a plagiarist," and now Amanda's forced to come out and address this. Like I said, my first tweet, it takes a great ego to assume your opinion is unique to you. And not only that, but to complain about losing money over this. I understand that people, their jobs are focused on being opinion writers and things like that. Hell, like I make opinion videos like I do right now. But as somebody who grew up doing manual labor as my first job, working in fast food, and then eventually graduating to running offices and doing more white collar stuff, I don't have a lot of sympathy for people who do this kind of work. I don't have a lot of sympathy for myself, you know? When people complain about having to give their opinions, and, you know, in this regard, I guess I should be a little bit more specific. You lost money, yes. But what is the job you're really trying to get? To write your opinion for the New York Times? I get it. The New York Times does make money off their opinion section, and they sell ads. But it's just kind of, it seems to me, like from my worldview, the way I grew up, it's just like the silliest thing to complain about. But I understand that might be your only skill, being an opinion writer, or not necessarily your only skill, but it's your focus and your work, so I get it. But this leads me to a bigger complaint I've had about young people who want to get into journalism. Time and time again, people say, "Tim, I really want to be a journalist. How do I be a journalist like you?" And I say, here's what you do. Go do journalism. It's that simple. Hop in a bus, go to some city, and film videos about stuff. And they go, "Oh, it's not that easy. Oh, well, BS. They call me lucky. They say I was privileged." And it's also annoying because when I went to Occupy Wall Street, I was sleeping in the streets. I was sleeping in the park. When I started working at Vice, I was sleeping on my buddy's couch. I was saving my money. You know, I've saved money from every single job I've had so that I would have the opportunity to do something if the need arose. But what do these kids tell me? "Well, I've got to pay my rent. I've got an apartment in Brooklyn." And I go, all right, well, leave your apartment. Look, do you have money to invest? What do you want to invest more in, your apartment or traveling the world and doing news? And time again, every single one of them, they say, "But I like my apartment." Yeah, you do like your apartment. What's more important? Flying to Egypt and covering a revolution, or having a chill little spot in Brooklyn where your friends can come over, eat pizza, and watch Game of Thrones? Make your choice. I love chilling, eating pizza, and watching Game of Thrones. But I didn't do it until I created a buffer, right? So in my work, my philosophy has always been, I save almost all of the money I get, and then once I have like 10% of my income is available to do whatever I want. So that means when I'm working at Vice, I don't have any money to spend on anything. I pay my rent and everything goes into savings. But once I start making more money, now I'm like, okay, now I can actually get an apartment. Now I can actually spend that $600 a month to have a couch and watch Game of Thrones. Can't order pizza yet though, all right? That way when that money's saved, there comes a point where I'm like, boom, now I wanna hire someone. Now I wanna expand. Now I wanna work independently. I admit, trying to be an independent journalist is difficult. You know, everything I'm doing today, all the traveling is expensive, and without the support of people like you on Patreon and Minds and PayPal, I wouldn't be able to do it. But the reason I was able to get started was because I've saved so much. So I just gotta say, my bit of advice to younger generation out there, if you're younger than me, if you're older than me, it doesn't matter. If you wanna get into this, you gotta cut your costs and you gotta allocate your money and you gotta invest in yourself, all right? Every second you spend doing something is an investment into that. You wanna sit around playing video games all day, eventually you'll get really good at video games. If you divide your attention between video games and school, you'll be half as good as video games and half as good at school. If you focus 100% on what you wanna do, you will be good. You'll be good at it. There's no saying you're gonna be better than everybody else. You might not be the best, but you will be better than most. Often I find too many people divide their attention. They have this idea of a backup plan. They're like, well, I'm going to school for business management as my backup plan. And I'm like, all right, so you're investing half and half. And then in 10 years, do you think you will be able to compete with those that invested 100%? And then there's the issue people say like, oh yeah, but I don't want to end up homeless. I was homeless. Too bad. It's a part of life. Sometimes you take the risk, and if you're not willing to take the risk, then you might not see that reward. Certainly some people get lucky, they do. But I risked, I sacrificed, and I saved. And sometimes in life, you don't get the job. And so I have to deal with rejection too. I have to deal with my pitches getting turned down. I have to deal with investors saying no to my projects. And ultimately, I have to figure out how to make things work on my own. So when I see young people complain, especially in an instance of, I wish I got to write my opinion for the New York Times, it's too bad. Write your opinion on Medium and post it to Twitter and Facebook, and maybe it'll go viral, and you'll get some attention, and that's the opportunity you should have taken. If the New York Times says no, say, all right, thanks but no thanks, New York Times. You have no obligation to me, and I'm gonna go write this and make it work for myself. And that's the way people should do it. I think we have a big problem with young people who don't know how to be their own business. They don't know how to make money on their own. They don't know how to start producing value without working for a big company. And that's scary to me, because I think the future we're looking at, or the future we're in, it's just young people trying to find jobs, and when they can't, they complain about it. They blame the economy, they blame the government, they blame other people. And at the end of the day, survival is your responsibility. The government, the social safety net, it exists to make sure you have an opportunity that even when you fall down, someone's gonna be here and be like, hey man, we got you. You know, I personally like the system that we have in the United States. People lose their jobs through no fault of their own. Hey man, I got your back. And then hopefully if you can push hard enough, you'll find a way to make ends meet. And that's what we wanna make sure. We wanna make sure we're not creating a bunch of homeless people and creating a drag on the economy. And that's why a social safety net kind of makes sense. But at the same time, when you get out of school, if you can't find a job, you can't just sit around blaming the system. You've got to think, okay, how do I get that person who's holding a green piece of paper to hand me that green piece of paper? It's really that simple. Produce something of value, figure it out. And that's really it. I guess I don't want to say, I mean, look, this is this thing I brought up on Twitter. It's kind of a stupid issue, but it got a lot of attention. I mean, Amanda Hess's original tweet is 464 retweets. And this brings up an interesting issue of your ideas are not unique to you. We're all standing on the shoulders of giants, which means we're all going to share similar ideas. And sometimes you're not going to get the job. And that doesn't mean it was racist. And it doesn't mean that they stole your idea. It just means you got rejected. You can try and figure out why it happened all day, but unless you can read minds, you'll never really know. And in that case, you better figure out how to make ends meet on your own, because you can't rely on other people. You can't blame the system for not putting food in your mouth. I mean, the system can be at fault sometimes. I'm not saying that's, not the case. But at the end of the day, no one's going to hand you free food. It's just not going to happen. Somewhat, I guess. So, I don't know. I guess you can see I'm pretty individualist, but I'm like, I don't know, like I always say, I'm kind of in the center. I understand why we have these systems to protect people, but then you can look at these situations and say, look, man, you didn't get the job. Figure it out. So hey, thanks for hanging out and watching this rant on Channel 2. Make sure to subscribe if you like videos like this. I don't know how often I can make videos, but I'm really trying to step up the live stream game, so that'll be on my main channel. And you can follow me on Twitter. You can subscribe to both channels. Make sure you subscribe to this one and my original one. If for whatever reason you found this channel not my first one, I'm at youtube.com/timcast. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you tomorrow.